Hey, second graders. It is time for Chapter 8, Part 2 of Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's Magic, the What'll-I Doers. So in the previous chapter, we met Lee and Mimi, who were supposed to go on a big hike with Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle and all the other kids, but it was raining really bad, so they couldn't go. And they were like saying, "What'll I do? What do I do?" But now Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle invited them over to her house. So let's see what happens. So Mimi and Lee put on their raincoats and galoshes and started for Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's house. The rain blew in their faces, ran down the gutters, in rivers, and went glunk, glurk, glunk, glunk down the drains. In the front of the Burbanks, the street drain had gotten clogged with leaves, and the whole street was flooded. Mimi and Lee took sticks and poked until they found the grating. Then, with their hands, they scraped away the leaves, and pretty soon the water started gurgling down the drain. The children watched for it for a while, then gulp, it stopped. Mimi reached down and felt around. Something was stuck in the drain. She jerked and finally pulled up a large black silk scarf. It was as wet and torn as she was about to throw it away when she noticed something tied to the corner of it. She worked on the knot, and then Lee worked on the knot, but the scarf was so wet it couldn't untie. So they decided to carry it to Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's house and cut the knot with scissors. When they got to Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle's, all the other children were there, and there was a huge stack of galoshes and umbrellas on the porch, and all the hooks on the front were filled with dripping raincoats. Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle opened the door for Lee and Mimi, told them to hurry and take off their things and come into the living room as she had something very important to tell them. Mimi showed her the black silk handkerchief, and Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle said that while Mimi was taking off her things, she would take the scarf to the kitchen and cut the knot. She did, and in a minute came back and handed Mimi a round gold coin. She said, "Mimi, I am quite sure that this is a lucky pirate piece. Mr. Piggle-Wiggle used to have one, and as I remember, it also was gold and had a skull and crossbones on it. You better take good care of it. Now let's see. Do you have a hanky?" Mimi said, "No." Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle loaned her one of hers and tied the lucky piece in the corner and put the handkerchief in Mimi's back pocket and pinned it fast with a safety pin. "Now," said Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle, "we'll just go in the living room with the rest of the children, and perhaps on today we'll be able to test and see if that's really a pirate's lucky piece. That certainly looked like a pirate's black silk handkerchief. I hung it up to dry in the kitchen, and after a while you can iron it." Sitting around on the floor in the living room were Mary Lou Robertson, Kitty Wheeling, Kitty's little brother Bobby, Bobby's friend Dickie, Hubert Prentice, Ermentrude Baggs, Gregory Moorhead, Susan Grapple, Molly O'Toole, Chucky Keystop, Dick Thompson, Patsy Prunella Brown, Parapenelia Grotto, Cormont Broomstick, Bobby, Larry, and Susan Gray, Catherine and Winfred Grassfeather, Worthington and Guinevere Gardenfield, Alan Weatherwill Crankerminer, Pergola Wiggle Wingsproggle, these are names, Anne and Joan Russell, Jasper and Myrtle Quick Trick, Sharon Rogers, Julie, Linda, Jan, and Jody Jones, Wendy and Timmy Hamilton, Christopher Brown, Doris Bard and Allison Burbank, Armand Armadillo, Pamela Percy and Potter Penzel, Mimi Wharton, Dickie Williams, Marilyn Matson, Benji, Stevie, and Sally Franklin, Terry and Teresa Teagle. Everyone was drinking tea and eating cookies, and being surly and quarrelsome in the damp, rainy Saturday kind of way. Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle sat down on a stool by the fireplace, made room for Lightfoot the cat, Wag the dog, and Lester the pig, who should have been at the grapples, but had stayed home for the hike and the picnic. By her feet, took a sip of tea, clapped her hands for quiet, and began. I know that this is a horrid rain has been a great disappointment to all of you children. I know because I was very, very disappointed myself last night when I heard the raindrops tiptoeing on the roof and tapping on the window. I also know because almost all of your mothers have told me that you children were terrible what'll-I doers this morning. However, this rain is not being able to have a picnic is actually the luckiest thing that ever happened because I need all of your help today here in this house. You see, a long, long time ago, when Mr. Piggle-Wiggle and I decided to build a house upside down, because when I was a little girl, I used to lie in my bed and wonder what it would be like if the house were upside down. We couldn't get anyone to build it for us because carpenters and contractors thought that building a house upside down was crazy. So Mr. Piggle-Wiggle built it himself. He said it wasn't too hard. He just took the plans of a regular house and used them upside down. As you know, all know, Mr. Piggle-Wiggle had been retired. He was a pirate and collected quite a sizable treasure. Part of this had he buried very deep somewhere in the yard, and the rest of it he hid in the house, in secret cupboards and drawers. I didn't know anything about these secret cupboards and drawers until the house was all finished. Then Mr. Piggle-Wiggle told me about them, and said that there were enough secret drawers and cupboards filled with treasure to last me the rest of my life. He would not tell me where they were because he said he wanted me to experience the joy of seeking and finding treasure. I didn't even look for any of the treasure until after Mr. Piggle-Wiggle had died. Then one day, I had used up the very last of my money. I hunted and finally found a secret little drawer filled with money. The money lasted me for almost a year. Then I hunted around and found another secret drawer with gold pieces in it. I've been doing this for 10 years and have, as you know, been living comfortably. But now I seem to have reached the end. All right, so it looks like Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle might be running out of her money, and maybe the kids need to help her. What do you think is going to happen? Where do you think they're going to find the money? Make a prediction, and I'll see you next time.